I should have known something was wrong the moment my mother-in-law offered us her house. Standing in her pristine living room, watching her perfectly manicured hands gesture at the crown molding and hardwood floors, I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. But desperation has a way of making you ignore your instincts. My name is Harper, and this is the story of how I lost everything to save my family. It just breaks my heart to see you and Ryan struggling with rent, Evelyn said, her voice dripping with concern that never quite reached her eyes. And sweet little Emma deserves a proper home, doesn't she? I watched my 5-year-old daughter twirl in the empty space, her blonde curls catching the afternoon light. Ryan stood by the bay window, hands in his pockets, wearing that boyish grin that still made my heart skip after 12 years together. "Mom, this is too much," he said, but I could hear the excitement in his voice. "The market value of this place." "Oh, hush," Evelyn waved him off. "What good is this big house doing me now? Besides, I'll be much happier in my condo by the lake. And this way, I can see my grandbaby whenever I want." There it was. The string attached to her generosity, wrapped so carefully in grandmother's love that refusing would make me look ungrateful. "We'd need to discuss the terms," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "The mortgage payments, maintenance costs." "Harper, darling," Evelyn cut in, placing her hand on my arm. Her grip was gentle but firm. "You're always so practical. It's admirable, really, how you manage with your— what do you call it? Digital consulting?" Ryan chuckled. "Mom, Harper's business is doing great. She just landed that startup account last month." Of course," Evelyn smiled. "Though I always thought a traditional job would be more stable. Especially with a young child." Before I could respond, Emma ran over, tugging at my sleeve. "Mommy, can I have the big room upstairs? The one with the window seat?" "We haven't decided anything yet, sweetie," I said, but Ryan was already nodding. "Of course you can, princess. That was my old room, you know. Mom, remember when I used to read comics up there for hours?" Evelyn's face softened as she looked at her son. "You were such a thoughtful boy. Always dreaming big dreams." I bit back a comment about how those big dreams had led to 3 failed business ventures and a mountain of debt I was still helping pay off. Instead, I watched them reminisce, feeling like an outsider in what would supposedly be my new home. "The papers are already drawn up," Evelyn announced, pulling a manila envelope from her designer handbag. "My lawyer made it very simple. You'll take over the mortgage payments, and I'll gift you the equity I've built up. It's the least I can do for my only son." Ryan's eyes lit up. "Mom, this is incredible. Harper, can you believe it? No more cramped apartment." I looked around the spacious room, trying to picture our furniture here, our photos on the walls. Our life transplanted into this museum of Ryan's childhood. But all I could see was Evelyn, dropping by unannounced, critiquing my parenting, undermining my decisions. "We should sleep on it," I suggested. "Make sure we understand all the implications." "Oh, there's no rush," Evelyn said smoothly. "Though I should mention, I've had other offers. And the market being what it is." Ryan turned to me, his expression a mixture of hope and pleading. Emma was still spinning, lost in dreams of her new room. I felt the walls of the trap closing in, lined with guilt and obligation and the desperate need to give my daughter a better life. "Where do we sign?" I heard myself say. As Evelyn produced a pen from her bag with triumphant efficiency, I caught a glimpse of something in her expression, not victory, exactly, but satisfaction. Like a spider watching its web do exactly what it was designed to do. I just didn't realize then that I wasn't the only one caught in it. It took exactly 3 weeks for the cracks to start showing. I was in our new kitchen, trying to concentrate on a client call, when Evelyn breezed in through the back door without knocking. Again. "Oh, are you still doing your little computer meetings?" she asked, loud enough that I had to mute myself. She began unloading grocery bags onto the counter, groceries we hadn't asked for, didn't need, and now would be obligated to thank her for. I wrapped up the call as quickly as I could, knowing from experience that ignoring her would only make things worse. Evelyn, we've talked about this. I work from home. These calls are how I make my living. Of course, dear. Though Ryan mentioned you might be looking for something more stable? She arranged organic produce in the fridge with surgical precision. My friend Margaret's daughter just started at that lovely accounting firm downtown. They're always looking for qualified people. The suggestion hung in the air like smoke. I gripped my coffee mug tighter. My business is doing well. The Thompson account alone covered 3 months of mortgage payments. She closed the fridge door with a soft click. Ryan says the payments are becoming a bit of a strain. My head snapped up. What? He's worried about you, dear. All this pressure you put on yourself, trying to prove something. It's not healthy for Emma. Before I could respond, Ryan walked in, fresh from his morning run. He kissed his mother's cheek, then grabbed an apple from the counter. Mom, you're a lifesaver. We were running low on groceries. We went shopping yesterday, I said. Oh. He took a bite, looking genuinely confused. Must have missed that. You didn't miss it. You were there. You insisted on those expensive steaks that, I stopped, noticing the familiar glazed look in his eyes. The one that appeared whenever money came up. Speaking of expenses, Evelyn chimed in, I noticed the gardener hasn't been by. The roses are looking rather neglected. We cancelled the gardener, I said. We're trying to cut back on unnecessary. But darling, proper maintenance is crucial for property value. You wouldn't want to let the house deteriorate, would you? After everything we've done to help? Ryan nodded, mouth full of apple. Mom's right, babe. We should reinstate the service. With what money? I demanded. The same money that's supposedly making the mortgage payments a strain? An uncomfortable silence fell. Ryan and Evelyn exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. I think Evelyn said carefully that if you're struggling so much with the basic upkeep, perhaps we should revisit the arrangement. We're not struggling, I said. We're budgeting. There's a difference. Of course there is, dear. Her smile was sympathetic in a way that made my skin crawl. I just worry about Emma growing up in an environment of financial stress. Mom's just trying to help, Ryan added, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked between them, my husband and his mother, standing together against me in my own kitchen. No, not my kitchen. Her kitchen, with its custom cabinets and marble countertops that I was apparently failing to deserve. I have another call, I said, gathering my laptop. As I left, I heard Evelyn's voice, soft but clear. I hate seeing him worry like this. Perhaps if she'd consider a real job. I closed my office door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. Through the window, I could see Emma in the backyard, carefully arranging her dolls on the grass. She looked up and waved, and I forced a smile, waving back. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryan, Mom's staying for dinner. Says she'll cook. Problem solved. I stared at the message, remembering the groceries I'd bought yesterday. Now probably relegated to the back of the fridge behind Evelyn's organic offerings. Another small battle lost in a war I was only beginning to understand I was fighting. My laptop pinged with an email notification. The Thompson account, they wanted to scale back their contract. Family business, the message said. Going in a different direction. I wondered, with a sudden chill, just how many of Margaret's friends worked with digital marketing firms. The notification from our joint bank account hit my phone at 3 a.m. I'd been lying awake anyway, listening to Ryan's steady breathing beside me, wondering when we'd stop talking about anything real. The screen's blue glow illuminated a transaction I didn't recognize, $12,000 to Investment Opportunity LLC. My stomach dropped. We didn't have $12,000 to invest in anything. I slipped out of bed and padded down to the kitchen with my laptop. The banking website revealed more surprises, a series of withdrawals over the past month, each one carefully sized to fly under my radar. Restaurant charges for places I'd never been to. A jewelry store purchase dated last Tuesday, when Ryan was supposedly at a business dinner. The sun was rising when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Ryan appeared in his workout clothes, then froze when he saw me at the kitchen table. "You're up early," he said, reaching for his water bottle. "Investment Opportunity LLC," I said. "Want to tell me about it?" He took a long drink before answering. "It's a tech startup. Mom's friend's son is the CEO. Ground floor opportunity. You took $12,000 from our account without talking to me. I was going to tell you when it paid off." He smiled, that boyish smile that used to make everything okay. "Come on, babe. You know I've got good instincts for these things." "Like the food truck venture? Or the cryptocurrency mining setup that nearly burned down our apartment?" His face hardened. "That's not fair. I'm trying to build something for our future." "Our future?" I pulled up the banking app. "What about these dinner charges? The jewelry store? You're tracking my spending now?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Real healthy, Harper. Real trusting." Before I could respond, the back door opened. Evelyn walked in, carrying a basket of fresh muffins. "Good morning, dears." "Oh, you look tired, Harper. Trouble sleeping?" "Mom," Ryan said, "can you give us a minute?" "Of course, darling." She set down the basket. "Though if you're discussing the investment opportunity, I think it's wonderful. So much better than relying on uncertain income streams." I stared at her. "You knew about this?" "I might have made the introduction," she said, smoothing her blouse. "Richard's such a brilliant young man. Harvard Business School, you know." "That money was for the mortgage," I said. "And Emma's school fees." "Oh, don't worry about that." Evelyn waved her hand. "I've already spoken to the school. They're happy to wait for payment, given our family's long association." The room spun slightly. "You spoke to Emma's school about our finances?" "Mom was trying to help," Ryan said. "Which is more than I can say." "Finish that sentence," I dared him. "Please." Emma's voice broke through the tension. "Mommy? Why is everyone yelling?" She stood in the doorway in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Evelyn immediately swooped in. "No one's yelling, sweetheart. Grandma brought muffins. Would you like one?" "Emma, go upstairs," I said. "I'll be up in a minute to help you dress for school." "But Grandma's muffins. Now, please." After she left, Ryan shook his head. "See? This is exactly why I didn't tell you about the investment. You're so rigid about everything." "Rigid?" I laughed, and it sounded strange even to me. "Is that what we're calling financial responsibility now?" Perhaps, Evelyn interjected, "if you're finding the household expenses so overwhelming, we should discuss alternative arrangements." "Alternative arrangements," I repeated. "You mean like the accounting job with Margaret's daughter? Or maybe I should just stay home entirely, let Ryan handle everything?" "That might be best for everyone," Evelyn said softly. "Especially Emma." I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to defend me. He studied his water bottle instead. "I need to get Emma ready for school," I said, standing up. "And then I need to call our bank." "Harper," Ryan called after me, "don't do anything rash." I paused at the stairs, not turning around. Rash would have been trusting you with our savings. Again. As I climbed the steps, I heard Evelyn's voice drift up, poor dear. The stress is clearly getting to her. You know, Margaret's daughter just started seeing the most wonderful therapist. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, and opened my banking app again. It was time to make some alternative arrangements of my own. The first thing I did after opening my new private bank account was call June Patterson. She'd lived next door to us in our old apartment building. And despite Evelyn's dismissal of her as that retired schoolteacher, she remained the wisest person I knew. Come over, she said immediately. I'll put the kettle on. June's small house felt like a sanctuary after the suffocating grandeur of Evelyn's, our home. Emma immediately curled up with June's ancient tabby cat while I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. I've been moving money, I admitted. Small amounts, whenever I can. It feels wrong. Wrong like stealing, or wrong like lying to yourself? June asked, sliding a plate of cookies toward Emma. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another bank notification. I nearly dropped it when I saw the amount, $50,000, transferred out of our joint savings to something called Caldwell Family Trust. Honey, you've gone white as a sheet, June said. I showed her the screen. Her eyes narrowed behind her reading glasses. When did you say Ryan's new investment opportunity started? Last month, right after. I stopped, the pieces clicking into place. Right after Evelyn convinced us to take over the house payments. One cookie is enough, Emma sweetheart, June said, then turned back to me. And the mortgage payments? Have they actually been going through? My hands shook as I checked the account history. The last 3 mortgage payments had been reversed due to insufficient funds. Each time, a deposit from E. Caldwell had covered the difference, plus exactly enough for Ryan's investment contributions. She's funding his gambling habit, I whispered. Only this time she's calling it investing. And using your family's security as collateral, June added grimly. Question is, what are you going to do about it? My phone buzzed again, a text from Ryan, where are you? Mom's worried. Says Emma's missing piano lessons. Emma doesn't take piano lessons, I said out loud. Not yet, Emma piped up. Grandma says I start next week. She already bought the piano. I stared at my daughter, her face smeared with cookie crumbs and complete innocence. When did Grandma tell you this? Yesterday. She said Mommy's too busy with her computer to take me, so she'll do it instead. June reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Harper, listen to me carefully. This isn't just about money anymore. I know, I said, watching Emma pet the cat. They're trying to erase me. Piece by piece. Another text from Ryan, Mom says if you're feeling overwhelmed, she can take Emma for a few days. Give you time to rest. The room felt suddenly airless. June must have noticed because she sent Emma to play in the garden where we could see her through the window. I have about 15,000 saved, I said quietly. Not enough to start over, but... Stay here, June interrupted. The guest room's yours as long as you need it. I couldn't. You can and you will. Her voice took on the tone that had managed classrooms for 30 years. Besides, I've been meaning to tell you. Remember that startup I invested in last year? The one you helped me vet? I nodded. I'd spent weeks researching the company for her, making sure it wasn't another scam. They're going public next month. My financial advisor says my initial investment will multiply several times over. She smiled. I could use someone with your expertise to help manage things. Hope flickered, dangerous and fragile. Through the window, I watched Emma chasing butterflies in June's garden, free and happy in a way she hadn't been in months. My phone buzzed one more time. An email from our mortgage company, final notice of default. If I do this, I said, they'll never forgive me. June's face hardened. Honey, after what they're doing, forgiveness isn't what you should be worried about. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. It was time to start documenting everything. The call from Emma's school came during a client meeting. I almost ignored it, but something made me excuse myself to answer. The nurse's voice was carefully neutral. Mrs. Caldwell, Emma's running a fever of 102. We've been trying to reach someone for the past hour. I'm her mother. I'm coming right now. I was already grabbing my keys. Who else did you call? Well, your mother-in-law is listed as the primary contact. She said she'd handle it, but... My heart stopped. But what? She hasn't arrived yet. And Emma's asking for you. I broke every speed limit getting to the school. Emma was curled up on the nurse's cot, her face flushed and hair damp with sweat. When she saw me, she burst into tears. Mommy, Grandma said she was coming, but... SHH, baby. I'm here now. I gathered her burning little body in my arms. Let's get you home. My phone rang, Evelyn. I let it go to voicemail. At home, I carried Emma upstairs to her room, past the gleaming baby grand piano that had appeared in our living room last week. As I tucked her in, she grabbed my hand. Don't go, she whispered. Stay with me like before. Like before? Before we moved here. When you didn't have so many meetings. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on documenting the financial manipulation, on building my escape fund, that I'd missed how all this was affecting Emma. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ryan, Mom says you're making a scene at school. She had it handled. I was typing a furious response when I heard the front door open. Evelyn's voice floated up the stairs. Hello? Where is everyone? Up here, I called back, keeping my voice low for Emma's sake. Where were you? Evelyn appeared in the doorway, immaculately dressed as always. I had a lunch appointment with the school board president. I couldn't just cancel. She pressed her hand to Emma's forehead. Oh dear, she is warm. I'll call my private pediatrician. I already gave her medicine, I said. She just needs rest. Well, I have that charity gala tonight, but I can cancel. No need. I'm staying home with her. But darling, you have that deadline. Ryan mentioned how behind you are on work. She smiled sympathetically. This is exactly why I've been saying. Get out. The words came out soft but sharp. I beg your pardon? Get out of my daughter's room. Get out of my house. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. You don't get to sweep in here and pretend you're the responsible one after leaving my sick child waiting for hours. Harper, she said, her voice taking on that familiar reasonable tone that made me feel crazy, I think you're overtired. Why don't you lie down? I can handle. Handle what? The mortgage payments you're manipulating? The investment scheme you're funding? Or maybe you'd like to handle my daughter's entire life while you're at it. Emma stirred fitfully. Evelyn's face hardened. I think we should continue this discussion downstairs. There's nothing to discuss. I sat on the edge of Emma's bed, taking her small hand in mine. I'm done letting you handle things. Consider carefully what you're saying, Evelyn said quietly. Ryan and Emma need stability. Structure. A proper family environment. Is that what you call this? Proper? She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do you really think you can manage on your own? With your uncertain income? The courts tend to favor stable home environments. The threat hung in the air between us. Through the haze of fury, I felt something shift inside me, the last thread of obligation snapping clean. "You should leave now," I said. "And take the piano with you." After she left, I held Emma while she slept, watching her fever gradually break. My phone kept buzzing. Ryan, Evelyn, probably the school board president by now. I ignored them all and opened my laptop one-handed. Subject: urgent meeting request. To Family Law Associates. I typed with my free hand while Emma slept against my shoulder, her breathing finally easy and regular. The weight of her trust felt like armor against whatever was coming next. It was time to stop documenting and start fighting back. Ryan came home at midnight, smelling of expensive scotch and his mother's influence. I was in Emma's room, packing her favorite clothes into a small suitcase while she slept at June's house, still recovering from her fever. "What are you doing?" He stood in the doorway, swaying slightly. "What does it look like?" I folded Emma's unicorn sweater, the one Evelyn always said was too childish. "It looks like you're having another breakdown." He tried for his usual charming smile, but it came out wrong. "Mom says you threatened her today. Your mother left our sick daughter alone at school for hours. She had a meeting." "God, Harper, you're so..." He ran his hands through his hair. "Everything's always a conspiracy with you lately. The bank accounts, the investments, Mom's connections. The investments that emptied our savings?" I zipped the suitcase. "The connections that cost me 3 clients this month? What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the emails. "Suddenly, all my local clients are going with other consultants. Consultants recommended by your mother's friends. Funny coincidence, right?" He barely glanced at the screen. "Maybe they just found better options. More professional ones." The word hit like a slap. I pushed past him into our bedroom and pulled out my own packed bag from under the bed. "Where are you going?" "June's. Emma's already there." His face darkened. "You took our daughter to that old woman's house without telling me?" "That old woman was there when our daughter needed someone. Unlike her grandmother. Unlike her father." "You're not thinking clearly." He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me. "Mom's right, you need help. Professional help. We can find you someone." "Stop." I backed away. "Just stop pretending this is about my mental health. This is about control. Yours and Evelyn's. Everything we've done has been for this family." His voice rose, making me flinch. "The house, the investments, Emma's future." Emma's future? I laughed, harsh and hollow. "You mean the future where she learns it's okay for men to gamble away her security? Where she thinks it's normal for her grandmother to manipulate and isolate her mother?" "Don't be dramatic. I filed for divorce today." The words hung in the air between us. Ryan's face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, and finally, something like pity. "You can't afford a divorce," he said quietly. "Mom's friends with every good lawyer in town. And with your unstable income, your emotional state." He spread his hands. "Who do you think the courts will believe?" My phone buzzed, a text from June: "Emma's asking for you. Fever's back." "I have to go," I said, grabbing my bag. Ryan blocked the doorway. "You're not taking my daughter anywhere. Move." "Or what?" He smiled, and for the first time, I saw Evelyn in his expression. "Face it, Harper. You've got nothing. No money, no connections, no proof of anything. Just paranoid accusations and a history of erratic behavior. How do you think that'll play in front of a judge?" My hand tightened on my phone, where all my carefully gathered evidence was backed up. Emails, bank statements, Recorded conversations, months of documentation that suddenly felt pathetically inadequate against the weight of Evelyn's influence. "Ryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "if you don't move, I'm calling the police." "Go ahead." He pulled out his own phone. "I'll call Mom's friend at the station." "You remember Captain Mitchell? From the charity gala?" For a moment, I saw it all clearly, the long game they'd been playing, the web they'd woven while I was busy trying to prove individual lies. Every connection, every friendly introduction, every social obligation had been another strand, strengthening their control. My phone buzzed again. "Emma's crying for you." I looked at Ryan, really looked at him. The man I'd loved, the father of my child, now a stranger wearing familiar skin. "Okay," I said softly. "You win." His shoulders relaxed slightly. I took advantage of that moment to duck under his arm and run, my bag banging against my hip as I flew down the stairs. His shout followed me into the night, but I didn't stop. I had nothing left except the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that would have to be enough. The email arrived 3 days after we moved into June's guest room. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but the subject line caught my eye: "Startup acquisition, urgent notice to early investors." My hands shook as I read it. The small tech company I'd helped June vet last year was being bought out. Her investment, the one I'd researched so carefully, afraid of her getting scammed, had just made her a millionaire. And she'd listed me as a 10% stakeholder. The doorbell rang before I could process what this meant. Through June's peephole, I saw Ryan on the porch, looking unusually disheveled. "Harper, please," he called through the door. "We need to talk. Mom's lawyer says." "My lawyer says I don't have to talk to you," I answered. "I know about the startup money." My blood ran cold. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "How?" "Mom has friends at the investment bank." His smile was desperate, familiar. "But this is good, right? We can fix everything now. Pay off the debts, start fresh." "We?" "I've been thinking about what you said. About Mom's influence, about my spending. You were right." He pressed his forehead against the doorframe. "I miss you. Emma needs her family together." For a moment, I wavered. Then I noticed the expensive watch on his wrist, new, definitely not in our budget. "Where's Evelyn?" I asked. "What does that matter?" "Ryan. Where is she?" He straightened up, dropping the vulnerable act. "Parking the car." "Of course." I closed the door just as another car pulled into June's driveway. Evelyn emerged, immaculate as always, carrying a thick, manila envelope. My phone buzzed. A text from June, who was out with Emma, called the lawyer. "Don't sign anything." The doorbell rang again. This time, I opened it fully and stepped onto the porch. Better to face them in the open. "Harper, darling." Evelyn's voice was honey-sweet. "We have a proposal that could solve everyone's problems." "You mean your problems?" I nodded at the envelope. "Let me guess, I sign over my startup shares, and in return, you'll make the divorce and custody battle easier?" "We're offering you a chance to repair your family," she said. "Think of Emma." "I am thinking of Emma. That's why I'm done letting you manipulate us." Ryan stepped closer. "Babe, don't be stubborn. Mom's trying to help." "Like she helped with the house?" I pulled out my phone, opened a recording app. "Tell me again how that worked." "The mortgage payments, the investments, the convenient reversals whenever you needed gambling money?" "That's ridiculous," Evelyn snapped, but Ryan's face had gone pale. "You recorded us?" "Everything." I met Evelyn's eyes. "Including your conversation with the school board president about sabotaging my clients. Interesting what people say when they think they're among friends." Evelyn's composure cracked, just slightly. No one will believe. The SEC might. I smiled. They're very interested in investment fraud. Especially when it involves manipulating property titles and bank records. You wouldn't dare, Ryan said. Think about what this would do to my reputation. Your reputation? I laughed. You mean the one your mother built while you gambled away our savings? That reputation? Harper. Evelyn's voice turned pleading. We're family. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't destroy each other. Family doesn't use a 5-year-old girl as a pawn in their power games. A car pulled into the driveway, June returning with Emma. I saw the moment Evelyn registered what was about to happen, saw her reaching for her perfect grandmother mask. Leave, I said. Now. Before Emma sees you and this gets messy. This isn't over, Ryan warned. Actually, it is. I held up my phone. Unless you want these recordings going public. Your choice. They left just as June's car door opened, Emma bouncing out with an ice cream cone. She ran up the porch steps, chocolate smeared on her chin, completely unaware of what had just happened. Mommy, look! June let me get sprinkles. I hugged her close, breathing in her sweet, innocent scent. Over her head, I watched Ryan and Evelyn's car disappear down the street. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about becoming strong enough that they can't destroy you. 6 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Emma arrange her stuffed animals on her window seat. The view wasn't as grand as Evelyn's house, but the sunrise filled the room with a warmth I'd forgotten could exist. The divorce had been surprisingly quick once the evidence came out. Ryan's gambling debts ran deeper than even I'd known. And Evelyn's carefully constructed social network crumbled when the SEC started asking questions. Last I heard, they'd moved to another state, somewhere their name didn't make people whisper at charity galas anymore. Mommy, look! Emma held up a letter. It came under the door. My heart skipped until I recognized Evelyn's elegant handwriting. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unopened. Instead, I sat beside Emma, who was already absorbed in her toys again. Dear Harper, the letter began. By the time you read this, Ryan and I will be settled in Arizona. He's agreed to treatment for his gambling addiction. Too late for your marriage, I know, but perhaps not too late for him to be the father Emma deserves. I find myself thinking about my own mother lately. How she controlled every aspect of my life until I married young to escape her. How I swore I'd never be like her. Then spent years becoming something worse, a woman so afraid of losing control that she destroyed what she most wanted to protect. The money from the house sale is in a trust for Emma's education. No strings attached this time. It's not an apology, those require forgiveness I haven't earned. Consider it a grandmother's attempt to finally do one thing right. Take care of our girl. She has your strength, thank God, not our weakness. Evelyn. A text buzzed on my phone, June, inviting us for Sunday dinner. Through the window, I could see her tending her garden, the startup money having changed nothing about her except the size of her flower beds. Emma, I said, want to help June plant those new roses she got? Can I wear my unicorn sweater? Of course. She ran to get changed, and I looked at the letter again. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to hold on to the anger that had protected us for so long. But Emma's laughter drifted from her room, free and unguarded, reminding me that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. My phone buzzed again, a client notification. The business was thriving now, built on reputation rather than connections. Turns out when you stop trying to please everyone else, you find your own strength. Ready. Emma bounced back in, wearing the sweater Evelyn had hated. June says she's teaching me about thorns today. What do you know about thorns, sweetie? She considered this seriously. They hurt if you grab them wrong. But if you're careful, they protect the pretty flowers. I tucked the letter away, smiling at my daughter's accidental wisdom. That's right. They're not good or bad, they're just doing their job. Like you do your job? Protecting me? Something like that. We crossed to June's yard, where the afternoon sun turned everything golden. Emma ran ahead, fearless and happy, while I carried Evelyn's letter in my pocket, not as a burden anymore, but as a reminder that the lines between love and control, protection and possession, are often thornier than we expect. June looked up from her roses, her hands dirty but her smile clean and true. Perfect timing. These beauties need a fresh start. Don't all of us? I said, kneeling beside her in the soil. Emma joined us, carefully touching a thornless spot on the stem. Can we plant them by the window? So we can see them grow? Of course, June said. Though you have to be patient. The strongest roots take time. I watched my daughter learn about nurturing things that can both hurt and protect you, about the patience needed for real growth. The anger that had driven me for so long settled into something quieter, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Sometimes the deepest wounds and the strongest healing come from the same place, family. The trick is learning which thorns to avoid, which to grasp carefully, and which to let go.